Take a slow breath. You're safe here. This is a story from Moonlight Japanese Sleep Stories. A gentle bell at the end of the day. Prologue: the sound that returns home. Evening in Japan arrives not all at once, but in layers. First, the light loosens its grip. The sun does not fall, it exhales. Shadows stretch gently, like tired animals finding a place to rest. Then comes the quiet rearranging of sound. The distant train softens, footsteps grow slower, and conversations lose their sharp edges. In a small coastal town where mountains leaned toward the sea, there was a bell. It did not belong to a temple, though many assumed it did. It was not large enough to call monks to prayer, nor heavy enough to mark the hours with authority. It hung instead beneath the eaves of an old community hall, a simple bronze bell weathered by decades of salt air and rain. Every evening, just before the sky turned fully blue-black, the bell was rung once. Only once. No one remembered exactly when the custom began. Some said it started after the war, when the town needed reassurance that the day had ended safely. Others believed it was far older, something fishermen once did to tell the sea and the land that night had arrived. The bell's sound was never loud. It did not command attention. It traveled slowly, brushing rooftops, slipping through open windows, resting briefly inside the chests of those who heard it. For many, it meant nothing more than habit. For some, it meant home. And for one man, returning after many years away, it was the sound that quietly unlocked a door he had kept closed within himself. His name was Aoyama Haruto. He heard the bell for the first time in 17 years on an evening when the train doors opened with a tired sigh. And the platform smelled faintly of iron, seaweed, and dust. The sound reached him as he stepped down, suitcase in hand, unsure whether he was arriving or merely passing through. The bell rang. Once. Haruto stopped walking. His body recognized the sound before his mind did. His shoulders lowered. His breath slowed. The noise of the city he had left behind, endless alerts, overlapping voices. The pressure of always moving forward fell away like a coat worn for too long. The bell did not call him forward. It did not pull him back. It simply reminded him that the day was ending and that rest was allowed. Above him, the sky deepened. A single star appeared, tentative but steady. Haruto stood there until the sound faded completely, leaving only the soft murmur of waves somewhere beyond the station. Night had arrived, and with it, the beginning of something he could not yet name. Chapter 1: The House That Waited. The house stood exactly where it always had. That alone felt impossible. Haruto walked slowly up the narrow road leading away from the station, his suitcase wheels clicking softly against the uneven pavement. On either side, familiar houses rested close together, their windows glowing with modest warmth. Some had changed new paint, newer doors, but the rhythm of the street remained untouched. He stopped before a small wooden gate. The nameplate still read Aoyama. The letters were faded, but intact. For a moment, Haruto did not reach for the gate. He simply stood and listened. Inside the house, there were no voices. No television. Only the subtle creak of wood responding to cooler air, and the distant, steady breathing of the sea. He slid the gate open. It made the same sound it always had, low, slightly resentful, yet familiar. The path to the front door was lined with stones his father had placed by hand. Haruto remembered being allowed to help, given the important task of holding one stone at a time. The front door opened easily. Inside, the air was cool and clean, carrying the scent of tatami and old paper. Someone had been caring for the house. Dust had not been allowed to settle. The rooms felt patient, as if they had been waiting politely. Haruto removed his shoes. The silence did not feel empty. It felt aware. He moved slowly through the rooms, turning on only a single lamp. Shadows gathered gently in the corners. In the living room, the low table was bare. The wall clock ticked steadily, unconcerned with his return. In the kitchen, a kettle rested on the stove. Haruto touched it. Cold. He filled it with water, set it down, and lit the flame on low. The sound of ignition was soft and reassuring. He leaned against the counter and closed his eyes. Memories did not rush in. They drifted. Summer evenings when cicadas sang so loudly the air itself seemed to vibrate. His mother's voice called from the doorway, reminding him that darkness was coming. The bell ringing at the end of the day, and how, as a child, he had believed it rang only for him. A signal that he had done enough, that it was safe to stop. The kettle began to hum. He poured the water into a cup and carried it to the ingawa, sliding the door open just enough to invite the night air inside. He sat with his legs folded, the warmth of the cup spreading slowly into his hands. The garden was small but alive. A single tree whispered as its leaves shifted. Somewhere, an insect chirped in an unhurried rhythm. From this angle, he could see the edge of the community hall's roof. The bell itself was hidden, but he knew where it hung. As if responding to his thought, footsteps approached from the neighboring house. They were light, familiar. A voice called gently, "Haruto, is that you?" He looked up. An elderly woman stood by the fence, her posture slightly bent, her eyes sharp with recognition. Haruto stood and bowed instinctively. "It's been a long time, Mrs. Sato." Her face softened into a smile that seemed to erase the years. "Well, you really did come back." She laughed quietly, as if mindful of the night. "Welcome home." The words settled over him like a blanket. They spoke briefly about the train, about the weather, about nothing that required explanation. Before leaving, she glanced toward the community hall. "It was a good sound today, wasn't it?" Haruto nodded. "Yes, it was." She smiled once more. This town ends its days with that sound. When she was gone, Haruto sat again. The tea had cooled slightly, but he drank it anyway. Above him, the sky was fully dark now, stars placed carefully, as if by hand. The bell would not ring again tonight. It had already done what it needed to do. Haruto breathed in, then out, letting his rhythm match the quiet around him. For the first time in many years, there was nowhere else he needed to be. The house understood this. The town understood this. And the gentle bell, having marked the end of the day, seemed to promise that tomorrow would arrive only when it was ready. Chapter 2: The Morning Without Urgency. Morning arrived quietly. Not with an alarm, not with obligation, but with a gradual softening of darkness. The night did not end so much as it thinned, like mist lifting from the surface of the sea. Haruto woke before he opened his eyes. He was aware first of the air cool, clean, unmoving. Then of sound, a distant gull, the faint rustle of leaves, the low, patient hum of a town beginning to stretch. He remained still. The futon held his weight gently, as if remembering the shape of him from years ago. The ceiling above was familiar, its faint imperfections exactly where they had always been. Nothing demanded his attention. There was no schedule waiting in his thoughts. No message he needed to check. No place he had to be immediately. This realization settled slowly, like warm water filling a bath. When Haruto finally opened his eyes, light had already entered the room. It filtered through shoji screens, pale and even, carrying no sharp edges. Dust motes drifted lazily, unconcerned with time. He sat up. His body felt heavier than usual, not with fatigue, but with grounding. Each movement was unhurried. Each breath seemed to have space around it. He folded the futon with practiced motions that returned without effort. Muscle memory, patient and forgiving, guided his hands. Outside, the town was awake, but softly so. The kettle was placed on the stove once more. Haruto washed his face at the sink, the cold water bringing clarity without shock. He watched his reflection briefly, noticing lines he did not remember earning, then turned away without judgment. Tea steamed gently in its cup. He carried it to the ingawa again, sliding the door open wider this time. Morning air entered, cool and faintly salted. The garden looked different in daylight, less mysterious, but no less alive. A cat moved along the fence, pausing to observe him with calm indifference before continuing on its way. Haruto sipped the tea. Across the street, a window opened. Somewhere, a radio murmured low enough to blend with the wind. A bicycle passed, its bell ringing softly, not as an announcement, but as a courtesy. Time did not push forward. It simply existed. As he sat there, Haruto noticed something unusual. His thoughts were not racing ahead. They were not replaying the past. They rested where he was. He remembered mornings long ago, when his father would sit in the same place, saying little, simply watching the day begin. At the time, Haruto had not understood the purpose of such stillness. Now, he felt it. Stillness was not emptiness. It was permission. After finishing his tea, Haruto stepped outside. The street greeted him without surprise. Neighbors nodded, some offering quiet smiles, others simply acknowledging his presence as something natural. At the corner, the community hall stood unchanged. He approached it slowly. Up close, the bell revealed its age more clearly. Its surface bore marks of weather and time, small imperfections that told stories no one had bothered to write down. He reached out, stopping just short of touching it. The bell was cool. It did not move. He did not ring it. This was not his role. Instead, he stood beneath it for a moment, listening not to sound, but to absence. The quiet held weight, like the pause between breaths. Eventually, he stepped away. The bell would ring later, as it always did. For now, the day was still beginning. Haruto walked toward the sea. The path sloped gently downward, familiar in a way that did not require memory. At the shore, waves arrived steadily, each one completing itself without haste. He sat on a low rock and watched. The horizon was clear. The sky is wide. Nothing needed to change. Nothing needed to be decided. The town breathed in. Haruto breathed with it. And somewhere deep within, something that had been tight for many years loosened, quietly, without ceremony, like a knot that undoes itself when no one is pulling anymore. Chapter 3: The Hours That Do Not Ask for Answers. The day unfolded without instruction. There was no clear moment when morning became midday. Light simply gathered, brightening the edges of things, softening their centers. Shadows shortened, then settled, untroubled by purpose. Haruto walked through the town with no destination. His steps found their own rhythm, slower than they had ever been in the city. He noticed details he might once have overlooked, the way a curtain breathed with the wind. The faint scent of soy sauce drifting from an open kitchen window, the uneven pattern of stones beneath his feet. At a small shop near the harbor, the door stood open. Inside, shelves were lined with ordinary things, canned goods, notebooks, simple tools. Nothing called out to be bought. The shopkeeper looked up and smiled, recognizing him without surprise. "You're back," the man said, as if commenting on the weather. "Yes," Haruto replied. "Take your time," the shopkeeper added, already turning back to his work. Haruto lingered, not because he needed anything, but because the space invited him to exist within it. He eventually purchased a single apple, its skin cool and firm in his hand. Outside, he sat on a low wall and ate slowly. Juice ran down his fingers. He wiped his hand on a handkerchief, unbothered. The taste was sharper than he expected, grounding him in the present moment. Time passed. He could not have said how much. By the water, fishermen mended nets with patient hands. Each movement was small, precise, unhurried. Their conversation drifted like the tide, present, then gone, carrying no weight. Haruto watched until his eyes grew heavy. He did not fight the feeling. Instead, he lay back on the grass near the shore, using his folded jacket as a pillow. Above him, clouds moved slowly, rearranging themselves without urgency. His breathing deepened. Thoughts came and went, leaving no trace. Faces from the past appeared briefly, then softened, dissolving into light. Regret did not follow them. Neither did longing. The sound of the sea filled the space between breaths. At some point, sleep took him not suddenly, but gently, as if he had simply stepped aside. When he woke, the light had changed. It was warmer now, lower. The afternoon had arrived quietly, without announcement. Haruto sat up, feeling no disorientation. The nap had not stolen time, it had returned it. He stood and brushed grass from his clothes, then walked back toward town. At the community hall, the caretaker swept the steps with slow, deliberate strokes. The broom whispered against stone. Haruto stopped nearby, watching. After a while, the caretaker spoke. "It's a good day," he said. Haruto nodded. "Yes, it is." No further explanation was needed. The caretaker continued sweeping. Haruto continued walking. The hours continued passing, asking nothing of anyone. And as the sun leaned gently toward the mountains, the town prepared not for night, but for completion. The kind that does not rush. The kind that knows it will be followed by rest. Chapter 4. When the light begins to lower itself. The afternoon did not end abruptly. It loosened. Colors softened first. Whites turned to cream, blues warmed slightly, and the edges of buildings lost their sharpness. The sun began its gradual descent, not falling, but easing itself lower, as if careful not to disturb anything below. Haruto felt the change without looking at the sky. His body recognized it the way it once had in childhood, an internal signal that activity could begin to quiet, that effort was no longer required. The town responded in the same way. Windows opened wider. Laundry was gathered in slow, unhurried motions. A shop sign was turned from open to closed with no sense of finality, only completion. Haruto walked along the main street. People greeted one another gently, voices lowered, words fewer. There was no rush to say everything before the day disappeared. What mattered had already been expressed through presence. Near the river, children played, their laughter lighter now, less sharp than it had been earlier. Even their running seemed slower, as though the evening air had weight. Haruto stopped at the small bridge. He leaned against the railing and watched the water move beneath him. Reflections of the sky wavered on the surface, stretching and breaking, reforming again and again. A man stood beside him after a while. Neither spoke immediately. Then the man said, "It cools quickly here." "Yes," Haruto replied. The word felt complete. They stood together, sharing the same silence, until the man nodded and continued on his way. Haruto remained. The first lights appeared, soft bulbs behind curtains, a lantern at a doorway, the faint glow of the vending machine near the corner. None were harsh. Each light seemed aware of the approaching night and adjusted itself accordingly. As the sun touched the mountains, a hush spread, not silence, but something closer to agreement. The town was ready. Haruto turned back toward the community hall. People began to slow their movements as they passed it, some unconsciously, others with clear awareness. A woman paused her bicycle. An elderly couple stopped walking. A child tugged gently at his parent's sleeve. Everyone waited. Haruto stood among them. The air felt fuller now, as if holding its breath. Then, the bell rang. Once. The sound was exactly as he remembered it. Not loud. Not insistent. It traveled outward, folding itself gently into the spaces between houses, across the road, into the open sky. It touched each listener briefly, then moved on. Haruto felt it settle in his chest. The day was complete. No judgment had been made. Nothing had been measured. The bell did not ask whether the day had been productive, meaningful, or successful. It simply acknowledged that it had existed. The sound faded. People resumed moving, slower now, calmer. Conversations did not restart immediately. Some things were better left unspoken. Haruto walked home. Inside the house, the light was dim. He prepared a simple meal, movements steady and unforced. The sound of chopping, the gentle simmer of soup, the clink of a bowl placed on the table, each sound fit neatly into the evening. He ate without distraction. Afterward, he washed the dishes and dried them carefully, placing them back where they belonged. The house accepted each sound without echo. When he sat again on the Ingawa, night had fully arrived. The stars were clearer now. The sea breathed steadily, unchanged. Haruto wrapped a light blanket around his shoulders. The bell would not ring again tonight. It had already given the day permission to rest. And slowly, without effort, Haruto allowed himself to do the same. Chapter 5: The Night That Holds Everything Gently. Night did not fall. It settled. It moved into the town the way a familiar presence does, without announcement, without disruption. Darkness filled spaces that light no longer needed, fitting itself carefully around houses, trees, and quiet streets. Haruto remained on the Ingawa for a long time. The blanket rested lightly on his shoulders. Beneath it, his breathing found an even rhythm, slow and unforced. The air carried a faint chill now, not unpleasant, only honest. Somewhere nearby, a sliding door closed. Farther away, a train passed, its sound softened by distance and darkness. Each noise arrived, stayed briefly, then left without taking anything with it. The garden was mostly in shadow. Only the outlines of things remained: the curve of the tree, the edge of the fence, the suggestion of stones along the path. Haruto did not strain to see more. What was hidden felt complete enough as it was. Eventually, he stood. Inside, the house was dim but welcoming. He turned off the lamp in the living room, then the one in the hallway, leaving only the soft glow near the futon. The rooms grew darker, but not empty. He lay down. The futon received him quietly, without resistance. He adjusted the blanket once, then let his hands rest where they fell. His thoughts slowed. They no longer formed full sentences. Images drifted instead: water moving under the bridge, the bell's single note expanding into silence, the steady motion of clouds across a pale sky. None of these images asked to be understood. They simply passed through. Haruto's breathing deepened further. Each inhale arrived gently. Each exhale is left without effort. His body released its remaining weight into the floor beneath him. Outside, the town slept. Not all at once, but together. The houses leaned into the night. The sea continued its patient rhythm. The bell hung silent, unmoving, content in its stillness. Time loosened its grip. Minutes, hours, these distinctions softened, then faded. There was only rest now, layered and wide. Haruto drifted. Sleep did not claim him. It welcomed him. Chapter 6, where sleep and memory touch. In sleep, there was no sharp border. Haruto found himself moving through spaces that felt both familiar and distant, as if memory had learned to breathe differently. The town appeared again, but quieter, emptied of detail, shaped more by feeling than by form. He walked the streets with no footsteps. The sea shimmered without sound. The bell was there, but it did not ring. Instead, it glowed faintly, warm as late afternoon light. The glow spread, touching rooftops, stones, and the surface of the water. Wherever it reached, things softened. Haruto felt no need to move closer. He simply existed within it. Faces appeared, his parents as they once were, younger, unburdened. They did not speak. They did not need to. Their presence carried no expectation. They smiled, not at him, but with him. The moment passed. He drifted onward, lighter now. There was no regret in this place. No unfinished business. Everything that had been done was enough. Everything that had not been done was allowed to rest. Sleep held him carefully, like water holding a leaf. Chapter 7, The Quiet Return of Morning. Light returned slowly. Not as a command, but as a suggestion. Haruto surfaced from sleep the way one surfaces from deep water, gradually, without urgency. His eyes remained closed for a long moment, aware again of the room, the air, the gentle stillness. Morning had arrived. It waited. Outside, a bird called once, then again. Somewhere, a door opened softly. The town began its next breath. Haruto opened his eyes. The ceiling was there. The light through the shoji was pale and kind. His body felt rested in a way that went deeper than sleep alone. He lay still, listening. The day had begun, and it was already gentle. Chapter 8, Days that Learn the Shape of Quiet. The days that followed did not distinguish themselves clearly from one another. They did not need to. Morning came with light. Evening arrived with shadow. Between them, the town breathed, moved, rested, and repeated itself with gentle consistency. Each day resembled the one before it, but never felt like a copy. Haruto began to notice small variations. One morning, the air carried more moisture, and the mountains wore a faint veil of cloud. Another day, the sea lay completely flat, reflecting the sky so precisely that the horizon seemed to disappear. He fell into the town's rhythm without effort. He swept the front step each morning, not because it required cleaning, but because the motion felt appropriate. He visited the shop near the harbor every few days, exchanging brief words that never lingered too long. "How is it today?" someone would ask. "Quiet," he would answer. And that was enough. Meals were simple. Rice, soup, and vegetables are prepared without urgency. He ate slowly, often in silence, listening to the faint sounds of life continuing beyond the walls. Sometimes he left the window open, allowing the breeze to move through the room, rearranging nothing but air. The bell rang each evening. Once. Always once. Its sound never grew old. It never became background. Even when Haruto did not consciously wait for it, his body responded, shoulders softening, breath easing, thoughts settling into place. He slept deeply, not heavily but fully. Dreams came and went, leaving behind only a sense of completeness, as if something had been gently set down each night. Chapter 9 Rain Without Urgency. One afternoon, rain arrived. It began without warning, a soft tapping on the roof that gradually deepened into a steady presence. The sky darkened slightly, but not enough to suggest night. The world simply narrowed its focus. Haruto sat inside and listened. Rain changed the town's sounds. Footsteps softened. Voices became closer, more contained. The sea's rhythm blurred into the rain's own. He watched water gather along the edges of the stones outside, forming small streams that followed paths carved long ago. Nothing resisted. The bell rang that evening as always. Its sound moved differently through the rain, shorter, closer, absorbed quickly by the damp air. Even so, it carried the same meaning. The day was finished. Haruto slept early that night. Rain continued while he slept, washing nothing away, only passing through. Chapter 10 The Weight of Being Here. As the days accumulated, Haruto realized something quietly significant. He was no longer thinking about how long he would stay. The question had simply dissolved. The town did not ask for commitment. It did not require explanation. It accepted presence without demanding permanence. He began to feel the weight of his own body more clearly, not as a burden, but as confirmation. His feet are on the ground. His hands are around a cup. His breath is moving in and out. Being here was not something he needed to justify. It was something he was allowed. One evening, after the bell rang, Haruto remained standing beneath it longer than usual. The square emptied slowly. Night gathered around him. He looked up at the bell. It hung motionless, indifferent to observation, content in its role. Haruto bowed slightly, not out of obligation, out of gratitude. Chapter 11, the end that is not an ending. Time continued, not toward conclusion, but toward repetition. Days ended. Days began again. Each ending carried rest within it, and each beginning arrived already softened by the knowledge that it, too, would be allowed to end. The bell rang. Once. It always would. And Haruto, standing somewhere between listening and resting, understood something without forming words. That the gentlest endings are the ones that happen every day. That sleep is not an escape. That rest is not absence. It is a continuation, slower, quieter, deeper. The town knew this. The bell knew this. And now, so did he. Chapter 12, when summer breathes slowly. Summer did not arrive all at once. It eased itself into the town, lengthening the days before anyone thought to name the season. Light stayed a little longer in the evenings. Mornings warmed more quickly. Shadows learned new shapes. Haruto noticed it first in the air. It rested more heavily on his skin, not unpleasantly, just present. The sea carried a deeper scent. Cicadas began their patient rehearsal, testing their voices in the trees before committing fully to sound. The town adjusted without comment. Windows stayed open longer. Meals grew lighter. Time stretched, then relaxed again. Haruto's movements changed with the season. He woke earlier, not because he needed to, but because light found him sooner. He napped in the afternoons, sometimes on the Ingawa, sometimes beneath the tree in the garden where shade gathered faithfully. Sleep came easily, not as a collapse, but as cooperation. The bell continued its work. Even in summer, it rang only once. Its sound seemed thinner now, lighter, as if the air itself carried it farther before letting it go. Children paused mid-step when it rang. Cicadas softened briefly, then resumed. The day ended. Always gently. Chapter 13, heat, held without resistance. There were afternoons when heat settled deeply. The kind of heat that discouraged movement, that made stillness feel like the most intelligent choice. Haruto welcomed these hours. He lay on the tatami floor, listening to the fan's slow rotation. Each pass of air was identical to the last, reassuring in its predictability. Thoughts thinned. They did not disappear, they lost their urgency. He thought of the city occasionally, not with longing, not with rejection. It appeared as an idea already completed, something that had had its time. Here, nothing competed for attention. Even discomfort arrived gently and left on its own. The bell rang. Once. Heat did not resist the sound. It accepted it, the way the body accepts sleep after a long day. Chapter 14: A festival that does not rush. One evening, lanterns appeared. Not suddenly, but gradually, one here, one there, until the street held a soft, floating glow. A small summer festival unfolded without announcement. No crowds arrived, only neighbors. Food was prepared slowly. Music played without amplification, sounds drifting rather than projecting. Children wore simple yukata, their movements unpracticed, sincere. Haruto walked among them. Someone handed him a drink. "Take your time," the voice said. He did. Laughter rose and fell. Conversations overlapped briefly, then separated. Nothing demanded memory. Nothing needed to be preserved. When the bell rang, the festival did not end. It simply softened. Lanterns dimmed. People drifted home. The night absorbed what remained. Haruto slept deeply that night. Dreams were rare. Rest was enough. Chapter 15: The longest days learn to end. Summer reached its fullness. Days stretched wide, then slowly began to release their hold. The light lingered, but no longer insisted. Even the heat learned restraint. Haruto felt no disappointment. Endings here were never abrupt. They were gradual understandings. One evening, as the bell rang and the sky held its final color, Haruto realized he no longer listened for the sound. He simply found himself calmer after it. The bell did not announce the end of the day. It completed it. Chapter 16: Sleep as a skill remembered. Sleep deepened again. Not because of exhaustion, but because the body had relearned how to rest. Haruto slept through nights without waking, through dreams without attachment. When he did wake, it was gently. Always gently. Morning never startled him. Even rain, when it returned, arrived politely. The town held him. The bell marked time. And sleep, no longer something to be chased, became something that waited patiently, knowing he would arrive. Chapter 17: When autumn begins to listen. Autumn arrived almost unnoticed. There was no single morning that announced it. Instead, the air learned a new clarity. Heat loosened its grip. Light thinned, becoming more precise, more intentional. Haruto noticed the change in sound. Cicadas quieted without ceremony. In their absence, smaller sounds surfaced: the brush of wind through leaves, the distant closing of a gate, the subtle rhythm of footsteps on stone. The town seemed to listen more. Haruto walked slowly, his breath visible only in imagination, not yet in air. The mountains sharpened their outlines. The sea reflected less light, holding more depth. Leaves began to fall, not dramatically, one at a time. They landed where they landed and stayed. The bell rang. Once. Its sound felt slightly lower now, richer, as if autumn had given it weight. Chapter 18 The Comfort of Longer Evenings. Evenings grew longer, not darker longer. They stretched gently between afternoon and night, creating space that asked to be filled with nothing at all. Haruto welcomed these hours. He lit a lamp earlier now. Its warm circle of light felt sufficient, complete. Outside, darkness gathered patiently, never pressing against the windows. He read occasionally, but often closed the book after a page or two, content to sit with the words already absorbed. Tea steamed longer. Meals warmed the hands as much as the body. The bell continued. Once. Always once. After it rang, Haruto noticed people speaking more softly, as if sound itself had weight now. Doors closed earlier. Streets emptied sooner. Sleep came without effort. It arrived before thought could interfere. Chapter 19 Wind that carries memory lightly. Wind became more present. It moved through the town with intention, not force. It carried the scent of leaves, distant fires, and the sea cooled by night. Haruto stood outside one afternoon, letting the wind pass through him. Memories surfaced briefly, not sharp ones. Simple impressions: his mother folding laundry, his father's footsteps in the hall, the way evenings once felt endless and safe. The memories did not linger. They nodded and moved on. The bell rang. Once. Wind did not interrupt it. It carried the sound farther than usual, letting it dissolve slowly. Chapter 20 Nights that invite the body inward. Cold arrived at night first. Not enough to discomfort, only enough to invite the body inward. Haruto added another blanket. The futon felt heavier, more secure. Sleep thickened. Dreams became rare again, replaced by something quieter: depth without imagery, rest without narrative. He woke sometimes before dawn, not restless, simply aware. He would lie still, listening to the house settle, the town breathe. Nothing asked him to move. Eventually, sleep returned on its own. Chapter 21 The Bell against clear skies. Autumn skies cleared. Blue deepened. Clouds thinned. Stars appeared sharper, closer, as if the distance between them and the town had narrowed. When the bell rang in this season, its sound seemed to rise instead of spread. It moved upward, briefly touching the sky before fading. Haruto often looked up when it rang. Not expecting anything, just acknowledging the completion of another day. He felt no urgency to mark time. Time marked itself. Chapter 22, Learning how little is needed. As autumn matured, Haruto realized how little his days required. Warmth, food, sound, silence. Everything else was optional. He no longer thought of his life as divided into before and after. The distinction had softened, blurred by repetition and rest. The bell rang. Once. The day ended. Sleep followed. And nothing felt unfinished. Chapter 23, When winter waits at the edge of sound. Winter did not announce itself. It arrived quietly, early in the morning, before anyone thought to look for it. The air sharpened. Breath became visible. The town adjusted without comment. Haruto noticed the cold first in his hands. Not discomfort, but clarity. Each sensation felt more precise. Wood felt like wood. Water felt like water. The world no longer blurred at the edges. The mountains wore pale caps. The sea darkened, holding light only briefly before letting it go. Footsteps sounded different now, firmer, slower. Conversations shortened naturally, not from reluctance, but from sufficiency. The bell rang. Once. In winter, the sound felt clean. It moved through the cold air without resistance, clear from beginning to end, then vanished completely, leaving no echo behind. Chapter 24, Days reduced to essentials. Winter simplified everything. Meals became warmer. Motions became smaller. Haruto spent more time indoors, but never felt confined. The house felt like a single, well-held breath. He learned the patterns of light again. How it entered later. How did it leave earlier? How the hours in between grew dense and quiet. He wrapped his hands around cups of tea and soup, letting warmth return gradually, patiently. There was no hurry. Outside, the town moved less, but not with heaviness. People appeared when needed, disappeared when not. Presence was deliberate. Sleep came earlier now, not from fatigue, but from invitation. Chapter 25, Snow that makes no sound. Snow fell one night. It began so softly that Haruto noticed only when the world outside appeared closer, as if sound itself had been folded away. He stepped onto the Ingawa. Snow gathered without urgency. Each flake landed, completed its role, and rested. The garden transformed into a simpler version of itself. No one spoke. There was nothing to say. The bell rang. Once. Snow received the sound and held it briefly, muffling its edges before letting it dissolve. Haruto slept deeply that night. Deeper than he had in years. Chapter 26, The Longest Nights. Nights stretched. Darkness arrived early and stayed. Lamps glowed longer. Shadows softened, losing definition. Haruto lay awake sometimes, but never restless. He listened to the house. Wood is contracting slightly. The faint whistle of wind. The almost silent ticking of time passing without demand. When sleep came, it came fully. There were no dreams, only depth. Chapter 27. A stillness that knows it will end. Even winter did not pretend to be permanent. Beneath the cold, something waited. Haruto sensed it in the way light lingered a fraction longer some evenings. In the way snow melted faster at the edges. The town remained quiet, but not asleep. The bell rang. Once. It marked not only the end of the day, but the continuation of time itself moving forward without urgency. Chapter 28. Rest as a place. By now, rest felt less like an action and more like a location. Haruto knew how to arrive there. He breathed. He listened. He allowed. Sleep met him halfway. The town held him. The seasons turned. And the bell remained, patient and precise, ending each day not with finality, but with care. Chapter 29. When spring remembers how to begin. Spring returned quietly. Not as contrast, but as continuation. The cold loosened its hold a little each day. Snow retreated without protest. Water resumed its movement, finding paths it had only paused upon. Haruto noticed the change in the mornings. Light arrived earlier again, softer than winters, less demanding than summers. The air carried a faint sweetness, not yet identifiable as flowers, only as a possibility. The town stretched. Doors opened longer. Windows followed. People lingered outside without purpose, as if testing the idea of time once more. The bell rang. Once. Its sound felt lighter now, not thinner, but lifted like something remembered rather than newly heard. Chapter 30. Buds that do not rush. Buds appeared. Not all at once, not everywhere. One branch here, another there. The town did not point them out. It was trusted that those who needed to see them would. Haruto walked the same paths he always had. They looked unchanged, yet felt newly open. Stones were warmer beneath his feet. Wind moved with less weight. He felt no urge to mark progress. Growth did not need witnesses. The bell continued. Once. Always once. Each evening ended with the same gentle certainty. Chapter 31. The sound of water returning. Water grew louder. Streams resumed their voices. The sea regained its familiar rhythm. Even rain sounded different now, lighter, quicker to pass. Haruto stood by the river one afternoon and listened. The sound carried no urgency. It moved forward because that was what water did. He breathed with it. The town breathed with it. Chapter 32. A year that has learned how to close its eyes. As spring settled in, Haruto realized something quietly profound. A year had passed, not measured in dates, but in endings. Each day is completed by the bell. Each night I fall asleep. Each morning allowed to arrive without force. He did not feel older. He felt aligned. The town had not changed him. It had reminded him. Chapter 33. The bell, exactly as it is. One evening, as the sky softened toward blue, Haruto stood beneath the bell again. It looked the same, unmoved by seasons, untouched by repetition. It did not improve, diminish, or evolve. It simply remained. The caretaker passed by and nodded. "It's a good sound," he said. "Yes," Haruto replied. They stood together until the light lowered itself fully. Then, the bell rang. Once. The sound traveled outward, as it always had, as it always would. It touched houses, water, air, and memory. It asked nothing. The day ended. Rest followed. Epilogue. A gentle bell at the end of the day. There is a town where days are allowed to end. Not dramatically, not loudly, but completely. There is a bell that rings once, and only once, reminding anyone who hears it that effort has limits, that continuation requires rest. Haruto lives there now, not as someone who arrived, not as someone who stayed, but as someone who learned how to listen. Each evening, when the bell rings, the day closes its eyes. And somewhere, gently, so does he. The long road home under a quiet sky. Prologue. The sky that never spoke. The night sky above Japan remained quiet. It was not an empty quiet, nor a lonely one. It was a wide silence that did not ask to be filled. A silence that allowed thoughts to slow until they barely moved at all. Clouds drifted without urgency, thin and pale, crossing the moon as if careful not to disturb it. A narrow road stretched beneath that sky, winding gently through the countryside. It had no clear beginning and no visible end. Grass crept close to its edges, softened by years of rain and footsteps. A man walked along it alone. His steps were steady, unhurried. The sound of his shoes faded almost as soon as it was made, absorbed by the earth. A worn shoulder bag rested against his side, light enough to forget, heavy enough to remember. He did not look up often. When he did not expect the sky to answer him. Somewhere far away, a train passed through the darkness. Its horn echoed once, long and distant, then disappeared. The sound thinned and dissolved into the night, leaving the silence untouched. The man continued forward. Each step carried him closer to a place that still existed, and farther from the life he had once lived there. Chapter 1: The Town That Remembered. The town revealed itself quietly. There was no clear boundary, no sign that demanded attention. Only a small wooden board at the roadside, its letters faded, its surface cracked. It leaned slightly, as if it had grown tired of standing straight for so many years. The man slowed. Dim lights glowed from behind curtains. A vending machine hummed near a bus stop, its light too bright for the sleeping street. A single street lamp flickered, uncertain whether it should remain awake. This was a town that rested early. The road narrowed as houses drew closer together. Roofs overlapped in uneven lines. Gardens varied, some carefully kept, others left to grow as they pleased. All of it felt familiar in a way that did not require memory. He crossed a small bridge over a shallow river and stopped. The water reflected the street lamp in broken fragments. The surface moved slowly, quietly, as if it knew there was no reason to hurry. He placed his hands on the railing and breathed. The scent of the river had not changed. That surprised him. A cicada cried out in the distance. Another followed. Soon, the night was gently stitched together by their sound. "It's still the same," he said softly. The river offered no reply. Footsteps approached from the opposite side of the bridge. Light, uneven steps. A child appeared beneath the street lamp, carrying a small plastic bag that rustled as she walked. She stopped when she noticed him. They looked at each other in silence for a moment. Then she spoke. "Who are you?" Her voice was calm, curious rather than afraid. He straightened slightly and smiled, careful not to seem threatening. "Just someone passing through. At this hour?" "Yes." She thought about this, then asked, "Where's your home?" He hesitated. "Here. In this town." Her eyes widened. "Then you're not a stranger." She nodded, satisfied with her conclusion, and walked past him. "Be careful," she said over her shoulder. "It gets cold at night." He watched her disappear between the houses. Something eased inside him. He continued. Deeper into the town, the streets curved gently, following paths decided long before modern convenience mattered. A small shrine stood quietly beside the road. Its torii gate was weathered but firm, its presence unassertive. He stopped. The shrine felt smaller than he remembered. Or perhaps he had simply grown. He bowed once and dropped a coin into the offering box. The sound echoed softly, then faded. He did not pray. Instead, he stood in silence. A memory surfaced standing here as a child, his parents beside him. His mother's hand is warm. His father's voice is calm. Those voices were gone. The space they once filled remained. A sliding door opened nearby. An elderly man stepped outside, adjusting his jacket. When he noticed the man by the shrine, he paused. Recognition took time. Then it settled. "I thought so," the old man said quietly. "It's been a while," the man replied. "You really came back." "Yes." The old man studied his face, then nodded. "You've grown quieter. So has this place." A brief silence passed. "How have you been?" the old man asked. The man considered the question. "I managed." The answer was accepted without further inquiry. "The house is still there," the old man said. "Just as it was." "Thank you. Don't push yourself," the old man added gently. "Nights are long here." They parted without ceremony. The man walked on, toward a house with no lights waiting for him. Above, the sky remained quiet. It did not welcome him. It did not turn away. It simply watched, as it always had. And beneath it, the long road home continued. Chapter 2: The House with No Lights. The house stood exactly where it always had. It faced the road without confidence, its wooden exterior darkened by age and weather. The gate leaned inward, one hinge quietly protesting when the man pushed it open. Gravel shifted beneath his feet, the sound brief and muted. No lights were on. He paused in the small yard, shoulder bag still hanging at his side. The windows reflected the night sky faintly, like closed eyes that remembered how to open but chose not to. For a moment, he did nothing. The air smelled of damp wood and soil. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked once, then fell silent. The cicadas continued their steady chorus, unbothered by his presence. He stepped onto the narrow porch and slid the door open. The sound was familiar, wood against wood, low and soft. Inside, darkness waited patiently. He reached in, found the switch by memory, and turned on the light. The entryway was filled with a weak, yellow glow. Dust hung quietly in the air. Shoes were neatly arranged by the wall, untouched for years. A calendar still hung where it always had, frozen on a month-long past. He removed his shoes and placed them carefully beside the others. The floor creaked as he stepped inside. Nothing greeted him. And yet, nothing rejected him either. He moved slowly, as if afraid of waking something fragile. The hallway opened into the main room, its tatami mats worn but clean. The low table sat where it had always been, its surface bare except for a thin layer of dust. He set his bag down and stood there, listening. The house made small sounds, wood settling, air moving through unseen gaps. These sounds had once annoyed him. Now, they felt it necessary. He knelt and brushed his fingers lightly across the tatami. The texture grounded him, more than memory ever could. "So I'm back," he said aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. The room absorbed the words. He rose and walked toward the kitchen. The sink was dry. The cupboards are empty except for a few chipped bowls stacked carefully, as if waiting for hands that had never returned. He filled a glass with water from the tap and drank slowly. It tasted ordinary. That, too, surprised him. He moved through the rest of the house, the bathroom, the storage room, the narrow space that had once been his parents' bedroom. Everything was smaller than he remembered. Or perhaps he had simply grown accustomed to larger, emptier spaces. Finally, he stopped before a closed sliding door at the end of the hall. His room. He hesitated. Then he opened it. The room was dim, lit only by the hallway light behind him. A desk stood against the wall. A bookshelf held old textbooks, notebooks, and paperbacks with yellowed pages. The curtains were drawn, holding the night outside at a respectful distance. He stepped inside and turned on the light. The room revealed itself quietly. Nothing had been rearranged. It was as if time had stepped around this space and continued without it. He sat on the edge of the futon and exhaled. A long breath. The kind taken after a long walk, when the body finally understands that it can stop. He lay down fully, staring at the ceiling. A faint crack ran across it, just as it always had. "So this is where I end up," he murmured. There was no sadness in the words. Only acceptance. Sleep did not come immediately. Thoughts drifted in and out, slow and unfocused. Faces appeared and faded. Places overlapped and blurred. Somewhere between memory and imagination, the road continued to stretch on. At some point, the house grew quieter. Or perhaps he simply noticed. His eyes closed. The night passed without incident. Morning arrived gently. Light slipped through the curtains, pale and patient. The man woke slowly, disoriented for only a moment before the familiarity settled in. He sat up and listened. Birds called from somewhere outside. A car passed on the distant road. Life continued quietly. He rose, folded the futon, and opened the curtains. The yard looked smaller in daylight. Weeds had claimed much of it, but the old persimmon tree still stood near the fence, its branches reaching outward with unhurried confidence. He stood there for a long time. Then he left the room. After washing his face, he stepped outside. The air was cool, clean. The sky was pale blue, almost colorless. A neighbor across the street was sweeping her front steps. She paused when she saw him. Recognition flickered. "You came back," she said. "Yes. You look tired." He smiled faintly. "I suppose I am." She nodded, as if that explained everything. "Well," she said, returning to her sweeping, "welcome home." The words settled around him. He walked down the road, past houses that remembered him in fragments. Some people looked twice. Some didn't look at all. At the small shop near the corner, the owner greeted him with a nod and said nothing more. He bought a bottle of tea and drank it slowly outside. The town moved at its own pace. No one asked him why he had returned. No one asked how long he would stay. For that, he was grateful. As the morning wore on, he found himself walking without intention, letting the streets decide where he went. The river appeared again, unchanged. The bridge welcomed his weight without complaint. He leaned against the railing and looked down at the water. The sky above was quiet. Not empty, just quiet. And for the first time in a long while, he felt no need to move quickly beneath it. Chapter 3: The Weight of Ordinary Days. The days began to settle into him without asking permission. Morning arrived with soft light and familiar sounds. The cry of birds, the low hum of distant traffic, and the occasional footsteps of someone passing by the house. None of it demanded attention. It simply existed, and he learned to exist alongside it. He woke early, not because he needed to, but because his body no longer knew how to sleep late. Years of waking before dawn had carved the habit into him. Even here, even now, it remained. He washed his face, boiled water, and drank tea standing by the window. Steam rose slowly from the cup, disappearing into the air as if it had never been there at all. The house felt less empty in the mornings. Not full, just less hollow. After breakfast simple, quiet, he stepped outside and walked. Sometimes toward the river. Sometimes toward the fields at the edge of town. Sometimes nowhere in particular. The roads accepted him without comment. At first, people watched him with uncertainty. They recognized his face, or perhaps only the idea of it. He was familiar in the way an old photograph was familiar, something once known, now distant. A man fixing his fence paused one morning and said, "You're back." "Yes. Didn't think you would be." "I didn't either." That was the end of the conversation. He found that suited him. By the third day, the small shop owner spoke more than a greeting. "You staying long?" the man asked, handing him his change. "I don't know yet." The owner nodded. "That's how it usually starts." He did not ask what came next. He walked home with the bottle of tea swinging lightly in his hand, the plastic warm from the sun. Clouds drifted slowly overhead, thin and pale. The sky seemed wider here than anywhere else he had lived. He wondered if it always had been. The house changed gradually. not in structure but in presence. Windows were opened. Dust was wiped away. The smell of old wood gave way to something cleaner, lighter. At night, a single lamp glowed in the main room, its light spilling faintly onto the road outside. He did not turn on more than one. It felt unnecessary. In the evenings, he sat at the low table with a book he had read before. Sometimes he reads the same page for an hour. Sometimes he didn't read at all. The silence no longer felt heavy. It felt earned. On the fifth day, he visited the cemetery. It lay on a small hill behind the town, surrounded by trees that whispered in the wind. The path leading up to it was narrow and uneven, bordered by moss and fallen leaves. He carried nothing but a small bouquet he had bought that morning. The stones were where they had always been. He stood before them and bowed. "I'm back," he said quietly. The wind moved through the trees. He knelt and arranged the flowers, careful, deliberate. His hands did not shake. "I don't know how long I'll stay," he continued. "But I thought you should know." He remained there for a long time. Not thinking, not remembering, just being. When he finally stood and turned to leave, the sky above the hill was a clear, pale blue. It felt distant but kind. That night, he dreamed. Not vividly, not clearly. He dreamed of walking. A road stretched endlessly ahead of him, familiar yet unnamed. The sky above was quiet, unchanged. No matter how far he walked, the road did not end. When he woke, the feeling remained. Not fear, not comfort, just continuity. As the days passed, small interactions accumulated. A woman from 2 houses down offered him vegetables from her garden. He accepted with a bow and a soft thank you. An old classmate passed him on the street, stopped, stared, then laughed in surprise. They spoke briefly about nothing important. Weather, time, how strange it was to see each other here. None of it felt forced. None of it felt particularly meaningful. And yet, the days gained weight. Not the weight of obligation. The weight of presence. One afternoon, as the sun leaned westward, he found himself at the river again. He sat on the railing of the bridge, feet dangling just above the water. The surface moved slowly, reflecting the sky in broken pieces. He thought of the city he had left behind. The noise, the speed, the constant sense of moving forward without knowing why. Here, forward, and still felt strangely similar. "You came back," he said aloud, not sure whom he was speaking to. The river continued. A breeze passed, light and brief. He closed his eyes. For the first time since his return, he did not feel like he was waiting for something to begin. Chapter 4: A Voice at Dusk. Dusk arrived slowly. The sky shifted through familiar shades, pale blue thinning into gray, then warming briefly with soft traces of orange before surrendering to evening. The transition was gentle, almost apologetic, as if the day did not wish to leave too suddenly. The man stood near the river bank, watching the light fade. He had not planned to stay out this late. The hours had simply passed, unnoticed, one after another. When he realized how low the sun had fallen, the town had already begun to quiet itself. Footsteps approached behind him, not hurried, not hesitant. He turned. A woman stood a short distance away, holding a small flashlight loosely in one hand. She looked to be around his age, perhaps a little younger. Her hair was tied back simply, her expression calm, observant. "I thought someone might be here," she said. Her voice was steady, unremarkable in tone, yet it carried easily through the dusk. "I didn't mean to worry anyone," he replied. She smiled faintly. "You didn't. I just walk this way every evening." He nodded. "I used to." That caught her attention. "You're the one who came back," she said. The statement was not a question. "So it seems." She stepped closer to the railing and looked out at the water. "It hasn't changed much," she said. "No." They stood side by side, not close enough to intrude, not far enough to feel distant. "I'm Aki," she said after a moment. "I live nearby." He considered, then replied, "I know." She laughed softly. "Then you remember more than I thought." "Some things stay," he said. The sky darkened another shade. "You don't talk much," she observed. "I never did." "That's true," she said, thoughtfully. "But you listen." He said nothing. The river continued its quiet movement. "You came back alone," she said eventually. "Yes." She did not ask why. "I walk here because it's easy to think," she said. "Or not think. Depends on the day." "I understand." She looked at him then, really looked. "You look tired," she said. "So people keep telling me." She smiled again, this time more openly. "Are you going to stay?" He hesitated. "I don't know yet." "That answer again," she said, amused. "It suits you." They watched the last light disappear together. When the sky finally deepened into night, Aki turned on her flashlight. "It gets dark fast here," she said. "You should head back." "Yes." They began walking in the same direction, their steps falling into an unspoken rhythm. At the crossroads near the shrine, she stopped. "This is me," she said. He nodded. "Thank you for the company." "Anytime," she replied. "I walk every evening." "I'll remember that." She hesitated, then said, "Welcome home." He watched her turn and disappear down the side street. The sky above remained quiet. That night, the house felt different. Not warmer, not brighter, but less still. He lay on his futon, staring at the ceiling crack. The sound of the river seemed closer than before, carried faintly on the air. A voice echoed in his thoughts. Not loud, not demanding, just present. He closed his eyes. Sleep came more easily than it had in years. Morning followed. He woke with a sense of continuity rather than interruption. The house greeted him with its familiar sounds. He made tea, opened the windows, and let the air move freely. As he stepped outside, he noticed a note slipped beneath the gate. He picked it up. The paper was plain. The handwriting is careful. I walk at dusk. If you're there, say hello. There was no name. He folded the note and placed it in his pocket. The day unfolded slowly. Chores, walking, quiet meals. But as the light began to soften, he found himself watching the sky. Waiting, not for something dramatic, just for dusk. Chapter 5: The Shape of Waiting. Waiting took on a different shape. It was no longer sharp or restless. It did not press against his chest or pull his thoughts forward. Instead, it settled gently into the spaces between moments, almost unnoticed, like a shadow that moved only when the light did. The day passed without distinction. He swept the yard. He trimmed the weeds near the fence. He washed dishes that had barely been used. Each action was small, contained, and complete in itself. When the afternoon light softened, he stopped working. He did not check the time. He did not need to. The sky told him when it was nearly dusk. He walked toward the river. She was already there. Aki stood by the railing, flashlight still off, hands resting loosely in front of her. She looked up when she heard his steps and smiled, as if this outcome had been quietly expected. "You came," she said. "So did you." "That's true." They stood side by side again, their positions naturally remembered from the evening before. The river reflected the sky in long, wavering bands of gray and pale blue. "I used to wait like this," she said. "When I was younger." "For what?" She thought for a moment. "For things to change." "And did they?" "Yes," she said. "Just not in the way I expected." He nodded. "That seems common." They watched a leaf drift slowly downstream. "You don't seem in a hurry," she said. "I've been in a hurry long enough." "That sounds heavy." It was. She did not ask for details. "I stayed," she said instead. "Everyone else left." "Why?" She smiled faintly. Someone had to remember this place while it was quiet. He looked at her then. "You sound like the town." She laughed softly. Maybe it taught me how to speak. The sky dimmed. This time, neither of them commented on it. When night finally settled in, they began walking back together. At the crossroads, she stopped again. "Tomorrow?" she asked. "If I'm here," he replied. She accepted that answer. Then tomorrow. The nights grew deeper. Sleep came without resistance, and dreams remained gentle, almost transparent. He dreamed less of roads and more of rooms filled with light, of voices that did not echo. Morning followed evening without friction. Days layered themselves quietly. They met often, not always at the river. Sometimes near the shrine, sometimes on the road that curved toward the fields. They did not make plans. They simply walked when their paths crossed. Their conversations were unambitious. They spoke of weather patterns, of how the river sounded different after rain, of which houses had once belonged to which families. Sometimes they walked without speaking at all. Silence between them did not feel like an absence. It felt like space. One afternoon, clouds gathered unexpectedly. Rain began to fall in a light, steady curtain. They took shelter beneath the eaves of an old storehouse. "I forgot how sudden it can be," he said. "It doesn't warn you," she replied. "It never has." They listened to the rain striking wood and stone. "You're different," she said after a while. "From before?" "Yes." "In what way?" She considered. "You're quieter. But not empty." He did not respond immediately. "That's new," she added. "Maybe I finally learned how," he said. "How to what?" "How to stay." The rain slowed, then stopped. They stepped back into the open air together. That night, he stood in the yard of his house and looked up. The sky was overcast, stars hidden, moon absent. Still quiet. Always quiet. He realized then that waiting was no longer something he did. It was simply where he was. Chapter 6: What Remains Unsaid. Some things made no sound when they settled. They did not announce themselves. They did not ask to be noticed. They simply took their place, quietly, among the ordinary moments of the day. He realized this one morning while standing at the sink, watching water fill the kettle. There were questions he had not been asked. There were answers he had not offered. And somehow, the days had continued without either. They walked more slowly now. Not because of fatigue, but because there was less need to arrive anywhere. The roads felt shorter, even when they followed the same paths as before. Time no longer stretched forward impatiently. It widened. One evening, as they passed the old elementary school, Aki stopped. "They tore it down last year," she said, gesturing toward the empty lot. It was already closed for a long time. He looked at the space. I thought it would still be there. So did I. They stood there, imagining walls that no longer existed. Do you miss it? She asked. I don't know, he said honestly. I think I miss the way time felt then. She nodded. That's harder to replace. They continued walking. Later that night, he found an old box in the storage room. He had not gone looking for it. His hand had simply reached toward the shelf where it waited, patient and unnoticed. Inside were photographs. Not many. They showed moments that had once felt important. Family gatherings. School events. A younger version of himself is standing awkwardly at the edge of the frame. He studied each image carefully. He did not linger. The past did not pull at him the way it once had. He returned the box to the shelf. Some things were best left where they had chosen to remain. The next evening, they sat on the low stone wall near the shrine. The sky was clear, stars faint but present. You left suddenly, Aki said. It was the first time she had mentioned it directly. Yes. You didn't say goodbye. No, she did not accuse. You don't have to explain, she said after a pause. He appreciated that, but something inside him shifted. I thought leaving would make things lighter, he said. It didn't. She listened. So I kept moving, he continued. I thought eventually it would. And? It didn't, he said again, softer this time. She looked up at the sky. Staying doesn't fix everything either, she said. But it lets things settle. He nodded. They sat in silence. Not heavy. Not fragile. Just shared. A few days later, a letter arrived. It had no return address. He recognized the handwriting immediately. He stood in the entryway, envelope unopened, feeling the weight of something that had not yet happened. That evening, he brought it with him to the river. Aki noticed it in his hand. You don't have to read it now, she said. I know. They watched the water move beneath the bridge. Eventually, he spoke. I left because I didn't know how to stay, he said. Not just here. Anywhere. She said nothing. I thought distance would give me answers. He exhaled slowly. It only gave me space. She turned to him. Sometimes space is the answer, she said. He considered that. The letter remained unopened. That night, he placed it on the low table and turned off the light. Sleep came, but it was thinner than usual. He dreamed of doors. Some open. Some closed. None locked. Chapter 7 The Long Road in Memory. The road appeared again. Not in front of him, but beside him, overlapping the present like a reflection on glass. He noticed it while walking alone one morning, his steps echoing faintly along a stretch of pavement that curved toward the hills. He had walked this road before. Not this one exactly, but one like it. The memory did not arrive all at once. It came in pieces. The sound of gravel beneath unfamiliar shoes. The weight of a bag that held too much and not enough. The way the sky looked was the same no matter how far he traveled beneath it. He stopped and looked around. The hills were quiet. Fields spread out in careful order, their lines softened by distance. Nothing in front of him demanded memory. And yet, the road did. He remembered leaving. Not the day itself, but the feeling of motion afterward. Trains, stations, rooms rented for short stays. Cities that felt temporary, even when he tried to settle into them. Everywhere, the sky had followed him. Different shapes. Different colors. The same silence. He had told himself that movement was progress. That staying still meant falling behind. The road had seemed endless then, stretching forward with the promise of something unnamed. Now, standing here, he realized the road had never been asking him to follow it. It had only been there. That evening, he met Aki near the fields. She was sitting on a low embankment, watching the light change. He joined her without speaking. "You look far away," she said. "I was," he replied. "Where?" "Everywhere I've been." She smiled faintly. "That sounds exhausting." It was. They watched the wind move through the grass. "Do you regret it?" she asked. He thought carefully. "No," he said. "But I don't want to keep repeating it." "That's different," she said. "Yes." The letter remained unopened. It moved with him from table to shelf, from shelf to bag, from bag back to table. Its presence was steady, patient. One night, as rain tapped softly against the roof, he finally picked it up. He did not open it. He simply held it. He realized then that the road he remembered was not made of distance. It was made of postponement. The next morning, he walked farther than usual. Past the fields. Past the point where the road narrowed and lost its familiar markers. He walked until the town disappeared behind him and the quiet grew deeper. The sky was pale and wide. He felt no urgency. He turned back before the road asked him anything. When he returned, Aki was waiting near the shrine. "You went far," she said. "Yes." "You came back." "Yes." She looked at him, searching his face for something he had not yet said. "I think I'm done walking away," he said. She nodded. "That sounds like a place to stop." That night, he opened the letter. He read it slowly, once, then folded it carefully. He did not cry. He did not smile. He simply placed it beside the other things that had chosen to remain. Outside, the sky stayed quiet. Inside, something finally rested. Chapter 8 Staying. Staying did not arrive all at once. It did not announce itself as a decision or a conclusion. There was no moment he could point to later and say, "This is when it happened." Instead, it unfolded slowly, almost invisibly, like morning light spreading across a room before anyone was awake to notice it. He woke one day and realized he had stopped counting how long he had been back. The thought surprised him. For a long time, time had been something he measured carefully: days, weeks, contracts, departures. Here, it had loosened its shape. Days followed days without needing to justify themselves. He made tea and sat by the open window. The street outside was quiet. A bicycle passed, its bell ringing once, briefly. Somewhere, a radio played softly, a melody he did not recognize and did not need to. He did not feel like a visitor anymore. He began to repair small things around the house. A loose board on the porch. A sliding door that no longer closed smoothly. The work was simple, sometimes imperfect, but it left marks of use, evidence that the house was being lived in again. One afternoon, the elderly man he had spoken to near the shrine stopped by. "I saw the light on last night," the man said, glancing toward the house. "Thought I should check. I'm staying for a while," he replied. The man nodded, as if confirming something he had already known. "That house does better when someone's inside it," he said. "They all do." He left without further comment. The evenings with Aki continued. Sometimes they walked. Sometimes they sat near the river or beneath the trees by the hill. Sometimes they shared silence long enough that it began to feel like speech. One evening, she brought 2 cups and a small thermos. "I thought we could drink something warm," she said. They sat on the bridge, steam rising gently into the cooling air. "You've changed," she said. "So have you." She smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe I just stayed long enough to notice." He considered that. "I used to think staying meant giving something up," he said. "And now? Now it feels like putting something down." She looked at him, understanding settling quietly between them. The town adjusted to his presence without ceremony. People greeted him by name again. Someone asked if he could help fix a fence. Another mentioned a part-time job at the community center, nothing demanding, nothing urgent. He accepted. The work filled a few hours a week. Enough to give shape to the days without crowding them. Children came in the afternoons, their voices bright, their questions unfiltered. One of them asked, "Did you go far away?" "Yes," he said. "Was it fun?" He thought for a moment. "Sometimes. Why did you come back?" The answer came more easily than he expected. "Because this is where I know how to breathe." The child accepted this without question and ran off. That night, he walked alone. The road felt different beneath his feet. Not shorter, not longer, just familiar. The sky above was clear, stars faint but steady. He stopped in the middle of the road and looked up, something he rarely did before. The sky did not respond. It did not need to. For the first time, he did not feel as though he were passing beneath it. He felt as though he belonged there. Chapter 9. Under the same quiet sky. The sky did not change when he stopped looking for change. It remained as it always had, wide, distant, and quietly present. Clouds crossed it without concern. Stars appeared when the light allowed them to. Nothing in it marked his decision to stay, and nothing needed to. He walked beneath it in the evenings, hands in his pockets, steps unmeasured. The road accepted his weight the same way it always had. What had changed was not the sky. It was the way he moved under it. The town settled further into its routines. The community center opened its windows in the mornings. Children arrived with backpacks too large for their shoulders. He helped where he was needed, setting up tables, fixing loose hinges, listening when someone wanted to talk without knowing why. No one treated him as someone who had returned. They treated him as someone who was here. That difference mattered more than he had expected. One evening, Aki joined him on the bridge as the last light thinned. "You're quieter than usual," she said. "I'm listening," he replied. "To what?" He thought for a moment. "To how things stay." She leaned against the railing beside him. "When I was younger," she said, "I thought staying meant choosing one place over all others. And now? Now I think it just means choosing today." He nodded. "That sounds right." They watched the river carry reflections of the sky downstream, breaking and reforming endlessly. Later that night, he sat alone in the house. The letter lay in a drawer now, no longer moving from place to place. The photographs remained on their shelf. Nothing demanded attention. He turned off the light and lay down. Sleep came without images, without roads, without departure. Morning arrived quietly. Light filled the room. The house breathed around him. Outside, the town prepared itself for another ordinary day. He stepped outside and closed the door behind him, not carefully, not hastily. Just enough. The sky above was pale, almost empty of color. Still quiet. Still there. And beneath it, on a road that no longer asked him to leave, he walked forward, not away, not back, but onward, exactly where he was. Chapter 10. The Road That Stays. The road no longer felt like something that led elsewhere. That realization came to him one morning as he stood at the edge of town, where pavement softened into gravel, and fields stretched outward without fences. He had walked this far many times before, always with the quiet awareness that he would turn back. Today was no different, and yet, something had shifted. The road did not feel unfinished. He remembered how roads used to feel. They had always pointed forward, always suggested movement, always implied that what mattered lay somewhere beyond the next bend. He had followed that suggestion for years, believing that motion itself was a form of purpose. Now, standing here, he saw the road differently. It was not an invitation. It was a presence. He turned back toward the town and walked slowly. Houses appeared one by one, familiar in their unevenness. Laundry fluttered gently on balconies. A delivery truck idled briefly, then moved on. Life arranged itself without reference to him, and yet he fit within it. At the community center, a child waved when she saw him. "Are you coming tomorrow too?" she asked. "Yes," he said. She nodded, satisfied, and ran ahead. That was all the confirmation either of them needed. In the afternoon, clouds gathered low and wide. The sky darkened not with threat, but with intention. Rain followed soon after, steady and calm. He watched it from the Ngawa, the wooden floor cool beneath him. Drops struck the ground, the roof, the leaves of the persimmon tree. Each sound was distinct, yet part of the same rhythm. The road outside darkened with water. It did not disappear. Aki arrived just before evening. She stood at the gate, umbrella closed, hair damp from the rain. "I thought you might be here," she said. "I usually am." She stepped inside, leaving her shoes neatly by the door. They sat together, listening to the rain. "It's strange," she said after a while. "How nothing changes, and yet everything does." He considered that. "Maybe change doesn't always need movement," he said. She smiled. "You sound like you finally stopped arguing with time." "Maybe I just stopped running from it." When the rain eased, they walked. The road glistened beneath the street lights, reflecting the sky in fragments. Their footsteps were unhurried, their shadows long and indistinct. "You know," Aki said, "people will stop talking about your return soon." "I know. Does that bother you?" "No," he said. "I don't need to arrive anymore." She glanced at him, then looked ahead. "That sounds like staying," she said. "Yes." They reached the bridge and stopped. The river moved steadily below, unchanged by the rain that had fed it. Above them, the clouds thinned, revealing small, steady stars. The same quiet sky, the same road, and beneath it all, a life that did not need to go anywhere else to begin. He stood there, hands resting on the railing, breathing evenly. The long road home had not ended. It had simply become the place where he stood. Chapter 11. What the Morning Keeps. Morning kept its promises quietly. Light entered the house without asking permission, touching the walls, the floor, the low table where nothing waited to be done. The air carried the faint scent of rain that had already passed, leaving behind a clarity that made each sound distinct. He woke before the town did. Not out of habit this time, but because his body had learned a new rhythm, one that no longer pulled him forward, but simply lifted him into the day. He lay still for a moment, listening. The house held him gently. The walls no longer felt like boundaries. They felt like pauses. He stepped outside and swept the porch. The motion was slow, unhurried. Leaves gathered and moved aside without resistance. The road beyond the gate was empty, resting between moments. A cat crossed it silently and disappeared between houses. Nothing needed to be followed. Later, at the community center, the morning unfolded as it usually did. A table needed to be set. A chair wobbled and was fixed. Someone asked where the extra cups were, and he knew the answer without thinking. A woman he had not seen before smiled at him and said, "You must be busy." He shook his head. "Not really." She laughed softly. "That's a good way to be." He thought so, too. In the afternoon, Aki arrived earlier than usual. "I finished my errands sooner," she said. "I thought we could walk before dusk." They took the road toward the fields. The sky was pale, stretched thin and wide, as if it had been carefully smoothed out overnight. Clouds drifted slowly, unconcerned with where they would end up. "Do you ever think about leaving again?" she asked. He did not answer immediately. "I think about movement," he said finally. "But not departure." She nodded. "That makes sense." They walked without urgency. A breeze passed, lifting the edges of her jacket, carrying the scent of grass and distant water. They stopped where the road curved gently, a place where the town was no longer visible, but not yet gone. "This is where things used to feel undecided," he said. "And now? Now it just feels open." She smiled. "That's better," she said. As evening approached, they turned back. The town welcomed them with familiar sounds, voices, doors, a radio playing somewhere unseen. Nothing announced their return. It was simply expected. That night, he sat alone again. Not because he needed solitude, but because it no longer felt heavy. He poured tea and let it cool slightly before drinking. The steam rose, lingered, and disappeared. Like many things had. Like many things still would. Before sleeping, he opened the window and looked up. The sky was quiet, unchanged. He realized then that the sky had never been silent because it lacked words. It was silent because it did not need to explain itself. And for the first time, he felt the same. Chapter 12 The Quiet That Continues. The quiet did not deepen. It did not fade either. It remained steady and unremarkable, like a breath that never needed to be held. The days followed one another without urgency, each one complete enough to stand on its own. He stopped thinking of them as days. They were simply time. In the mornings, the town woke gradually. Shutters opened. Bicycles rolled past. Voices overlapped briefly and then separated again. He moved among these sounds without resistance, neither ahead nor behind. At the community center, the children no longer asked where he came from. They asked what came next. Are we going to read today? Can you help me with this? Will you be here tomorrow? Yes, he said, more often than not. And when he wasn't sure, he still said it gently. The house held the marks of living now. A cup left to dry by the sink. A book face down on the table. Shoes were placed without careful symmetry by the door. None of it felt careless. It felt inhabited. In the evenings, light gathered behind the curtains and spilled faintly into the street. Someone walking past once paused and glanced at the window, then continued on, satisfied by the simple proof that someone was home. Aki visited often. Sometimes they walked. Sometimes they didn't. One night, they sat on the Ingawa, feet resting on the cool wood, listening to the insects gather their voices. You know, she said, I used to think quiet meant loneliness. And now? Now I think it means there's room for things to arrive. He nodded. That's how it feels, he said. They watched a firefly drift briefly through the darkness before disappearing again. The letter remained in its drawer. Not forgotten. Just settled. He no longer felt the need to return to it, to re-examine its meaning words. It had said what it needed to say. What remained was not in ink. One afternoon, he walked the road alone again. Not out of restlessness. Out of familiarity. The road accepted him, unchanged. The fields stretched outward. The sky watched without comment. He walked until he felt like turning back, and then he did. There was no question attached to the choice. As summer leaned toward its quieter days, the evenings grew longer. Light lingered near the horizon, hesitant to leave. He stood one evening at the bridge and watched the river carry the sky forward, fragment by fragment. The long road home was still there. So was the quiet sky. Neither asked anything of him. And beneath them both, he stood exactly where he needed to be. Chapter 13. When seasons begin to turn. The first sign of change was not the air. It was the light. Morning arrived a little later than it had before, lingering at the edge of the sky as if uncertain whether it was truly needed yet. When it finally came, it was softer, less insistent, spreading gently across the town. He noticed it while standing at the window, tea cooling in his hands. Autumn did not announce itself. It simply began. The persimmon tree in the yard held its fruit quietly. Green at first, firm and patient, they waited without asking to be seen. Leaves thinned slowly, falling one by one, never all at once. He swept them without frustration. There was no urgency in keeping the ground clear. At the community center, the children wore light jackets now. Their voices carried the same energy, but the air that held them felt clearer, sharper at the edges. "Summer's over," one of them said, not with sadness, but with certainty. "Yes," he replied. "It did its part." The child nodded, as if that settled the matter. One evening, Aki arrived carrying a small paper bag. "I made too much," she said. "I thought you might help." Inside were roasted sweet potatoes, still warm. They ate them on the bridge, steam rising into the cooling air. "I like this season," she said. "It doesn't rush." He agreed. The sky above them was pale and high, already preparing itself for longer nights. They spoke a little more than usual. Not about the past. Not about the future. About things that had no direction. Books read slowly. Meals remembered more for the silence than the taste. The way certain roads felt different depending on the time of day. None of it needed resolution. Later that night, alone in the house, he opened a window and let the cool air in. The house responded quietly, wood adjusting, space breathing. He realized then that staying did not mean resisting change. It meant allowing it. The road outside was scattered with fallen leaves. They did not block the way. They marked it. And beneath the same quiet sky, as seasons began their slow turn, he rested within the movement rather than against it. Chapter 14. The sound of falling leaves. The sound was barely there. A soft touch against the ground. A faint rustle as something released itself from where it had been holding on. If he had not been listening, he might not have noticed it at all. Leaves fell without ceremony. They did not hurry. They did not resist. They let go when the time came, each one separate, each one complete. He walked along the road as they drifted down around him. Some landed on his shoulders. Some brushed past his hands. Others settled quietly at his feet, already becoming part of the path. He did not step around them. He walked through them. The town grew quieter in a different way. Windows closed earlier in the evenings. Light gathered inside homes, warmer now, more contained. The vending machine near the bus stop hummed more loudly in the cooling air, its presence oddly comforting. He passed it one night and stopped, not to buy anything, but simply to listen. The sound had been there all his life. He had only just learned how to hear it. Aki met him near the shrine one afternoon. She was sweeping fallen leaves from the stone steps, moving them gently to the side rather than away. "They'll just fall again," she said, smiling as he approached. "Yes," he replied, "but it still feels right to do it." She nodded, understanding easily. They worked in silence for a while, the broom's soft rhythm joining the quiet. "When I was younger," she said, "I used to feel sad when summer ended. And now? Now I think I was just afraid of things leaving." He considered that. "Do you still feel that way?" "Not as much," she said. "Some things leave so other things can be noticed." They stepped back and looked at their work. The steps were not spotless. They did not need to be. That evening, he cooked for the first time in a while. Nothing elaborate. Rice, soup, and vegetables are prepared slowly. The sounds of chopping and boiling filled the house briefly, then faded. He ate alone at the low table, unhurried, each bite grounding him further into the present. Afterward, he left the dishes to dry and stepped outside. The air carried the scent of fallen leaves and distant smoke. Somewhere, someone was burning yard waste, the smell familiar and faintly nostalgic. He stood beneath the tree and looked up. Branches were thinning. The sky showed through more clearly now. That night, he dreamed again. This time, there was no road. There was only a field, wide and open, covered in leaves. He stood in the middle of it, unmoving, while the sky passed slowly overhead. When he woke, the feeling remained. Not loss, not longing, just space. In the days that followed, the leaves continued to fall. He swept them from the porch. He kicked them lightly as he walked. He watched them gather in corners and along fences, finding places to rest. Nothing about it felt like an ending. It felt like a pause that belonged to the earth itself. One evening, as dusk settled early, Aki walked beside him along the road. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" she asked. He listened to their footsteps, to the leaves shifting beneath them. "No," he said, "not the way I used to." "And is that enough?" "Yes," he replied. "For now." She smiled, satisfied with the answer. They continued beneath the quiet sky, the sound of falling leaves marking time in a language neither of them needed to translate. Chapter 15. 15. The warmth of small lights. Cold arrived gently. It did not rush into the town or announce itself with sharp winds. It settled in during the evenings, slipping between layers of clothing, touching the skin just long enough to be noticed before retreating again. With it came lights. Small ones. Windows glowed earlier now. Lamps were switched on before the sky fully darkened. The vending machine near the bus stop felt brighter than it had all summer, its white light cutting a clean shape into the growing night. He noticed these things as he walked. Each light marked a place where someone had chosen to stay. At home, he turned on the heater for the first time that season. The sound was soft, steady. Warm air spread slowly through the room, not enough to banish the cold entirely, but enough to make it welcome. He wrapped his hands around a cup of tea and sat near the window. Outside, the road reflected the light from his room faintly. It felt strange, comforting, to know that someone passing by might see that glow and understand, without thinking about it, that someone was there. The community center grew busier. Children lingered longer in the afternoons, reluctant to return to darkening streets. Someone brought a box of oranges and left it on the table without explanation. He peeled one carefully, the scent filling the room. "Winter's coming," a child said. "Yes," he replied. "Do you like winter?" He considered the question. "I think I'm learning to," he said. The child accepted this answer easily. One evening, Aki came by with a small bag. "I made soup," she said. "It's too much for one person." They ate together at the low table, steam rising between them. "It's strange," she said, "how warmth feels different when it's shared." He nodded. "Like light," he said. "It doesn't get smaller." She smiled, pleased by the comparison. Outside, the sky deepened into night. Later, they walked. The air was crisp now, each breath clear and deliberate. Their steps sounded sharper against the road, leaves brittle beneath their shoes. The town felt smaller at night. Not confining. Intimate. "Do you ever feel lonely?" Aki asked suddenly. He did not answer right away. "I used to," he said finally. "Even when I was surrounded by people." "And now?" "Now," he said, "I feel alone sometimes. But not lonely." She looked at him, then nodded. "That's a good difference." They stopped near the bridge. Lights from nearby houses reflected on the water, stretching into long, trembling lines. The river carried them all away without distinction. Above, the sky was clear and cold. Still quiet. Always quiet. That night, as he lay down to sleep, he thought about the lights he had passed. Each one is small. Each one is enough. The long road home had not led him to something bright and overwhelming. It had led him to these moments. To warmth that did not insist. To light that stayed. Chapter 16 Winter without urgency. Winter arrived without sharp edges. It did not cut into the days or force itself into the nights. It simply remained steady and clear, allowing everything else to slow until it matched its pace. Frost appeared on the road in the early mornings, thin and delicate, vanishing as soon as the sun touched it. Breath turned briefly visible, then disappeared again, as if reminding him that warmth still existed, even when unseen. He walked carefully, not to avoid slipping, but to listen. Winter had its own quiet. The house responded to the cold in small ways. Wood contracted and expanded with faint sounds in the night. The heater hummed more often. Blankets were folded and unfolded, moved closer, then set aside. None of it felt inconvenient. It felt intentional. He found comfort in these small adjustments, in the way the body and the house learned to respond together. At the community center, activities shifted indoors. Children gathered around low tables, their voices softer, more contained. Someone brought a small heater and placed it carefully in the corner. Hands hovered near it instinctively, drawn by warmth without thought. He helped prepare hot drinks, careful not to spill. "Winter makes everything slower," one of the older children said. "Yes," he replied, "but not smaller." The child considered this, then nodded. One afternoon, snow fell. Not heavily. Not dramatically. It arrived as a suggestion, thin flakes drifting down without urgency. They melted almost as soon as they touched the ground, leaving only dampness behind. He stood outside and watched. The sky was pale, almost white, blending seamlessly with the air. Aki joined him, hands tucked into her coat pockets. "It won't stay," she said. "That's fine," he replied. They watched together until the snow stopped, leaving no trace except the memory of having been there at all. That evening, they walked along the road. The town was quieter than usual, as if listening inward. Lights felt closer now, warmer against the dark. The vending machine glowed like a lighthouse, unchanged, reliable. "You seem settled," Aki said. "I am," he replied. She smiled, then asked, "Does that ever feel strange to you?" He thought for a moment. "No," he said. "It feels ordinary. That might be the best kind." Later, alone again, he sat by the window and looked out. The road was empty. The sky above was still quiet. He realized then that winter did not feel like a pause. It felt like a continuation. He went to bed early. Sleep came easily, unmarked by dreams. Outside, the town rested. Inside, nothing waited. And beneath the same quiet sky, the season unfolded without urgency, exactly as it was meant to. Chapter 17: Snow that almost stayed. The snow came during the night. Not all at once, not loudly. It arrived the way sleep did, gradually, patiently, without asking whether it was welcome. By morning, the town had softened beneath a thin white layer, edges blurred, familiar shapes briefly transformed. He noticed it when the light felt different. Brighter, yet muted. He opened the door and stepped outside. The road was pale and quiet, its surface covered just enough to hide its cracks and lines. Footprints marked a few paths. Someone had already gone to work. Someone else had walked a dog. The snow accepted each mark without protest. He stood still for a moment, listening. Winter's quiet was different from autumn's. It held more space. The persimmon tree stood bare now, branches traced lightly with white. Snow rested there as if testing whether it would be allowed to stay. He brushed some from the porch railing with his sleeve. It fell soundlessly to the ground. At the community center, the children arrived louder than usual. It snowed, it stayed, look, it's still there. He smiled as he listened. They pressed their hands against the windows, breath fogging the glass, watching the snow slowly lose its certainty as the morning wore on. "Will it melt?" one of them asked. "Yes," he said. "Oh," the child replied, disappointed but accepting. "Next time," he added. That seemed to help. By noon, the snow had begun to retreat. Dark patches of road reappeared. Roofs shed their white coverings in quiet slides. What remained gathered in corners and shaded places, reluctant to leave entirely. He walked outside during his break and followed the road toward the river. The water moved as it always had, unaffected, carrying reflections of the pale sky downstream. Aki stood on the bridge, watching. "You came," she said. "So did the snow," he replied. She laughed softly. "It never quite commits here." "That's all right," he said. "Neither do I." She looked at him, curious. "And yet," she said, "you're still here." "Yes." They leaned against the railing together. As the afternoon turned toward evening, the last traces of snow disappeared. The town returned to itself, unchanged, as if nothing unusual had happened. Only the memory of brightness lingered. That night, he walked alone. The road was dark again, but it felt different under his feet, as if it remembered having been something else, even briefly. He looked up. The sky was clear, quiet, unmoved. Before sleeping, he thought about the snow. How it had arrived. How it had almost stayed. How that had been enough. The long road home did not need permanence to matter. Sometimes, passing through was its own kind of presence. And beneath the same quiet sky, winter continued lightly, patiently just as he did. Final chapter under a sky that remains. Night came without effort. It did not fall or descend. It simply arrived, as it always had, settling gently over the town, over the road, over the house that held a quiet, steady light inside. He lay on his futon, not yet asleep, not fully awake. The window was slightly open. Cool air moved through the room, slow and careful, carrying distant sounds with it, water flowing somewhere unseen, a door closing far away. The faint hum of electricity that never truly stopped. None of it asked for attention. His breathing found its rhythm on its own. In and out, in and out. He thought, briefly, of the road. Not as something long or difficult, not as something that had led him here. Just as a presence that existed beyond the window, resting now beneath the night. The road did not move. It did not need to. He thought of the town. The lights were turned off one by one. Of people settling into their own silences. Of rooms like this one, each holding a different shape of rest. Somewhere, someone was still awake. Somewhere else, someone had already drifted into sleep. All of it belonged to the same moment. The sky above remained quiet. It did not watch. It did not judge. It did not respond. It simply stayed. Clouds moved slowly across it, unhurried, unconcerned with where they would be when morning came. Stars appeared where the darkness allowed them to, faint and patient. The same sky that had followed him everywhere. The same sky that had never asked him to leave. His thoughts softened. They no longer formed questions. They loosened, stretching out, then fading at the edges. There was nothing he needed to remember. Nothing he needed to decide. Nothing waits just beyond sleep. The house breathed with him. Wood settled. Air shifted. Time passed without marking itself. The long road home did not end here. It did not need to. It continued quietly, exactly as it was, beneath the same sky that remained silent, wide, and gently unchanged. His breathing slowed. The space between breaths widened. And somewhere between one moment and the next, without noticing when it happened, he rested. Not at the end. Not at the beginning. Just here, under a quiet sky.